Now that you have one-step equations down, we're going to move on to two-step equations. What we need to know is that the questions are still going to be the same. We're going to ask ourselves, where is the variable? What is with the variable that needs to be moved? And what is the opposite operation? Or in other words, how do we move it? There are a few things though that we need to remember. The first thing that you want to do is remove fractions. So if you see fractions, remember we're going to multiply by that denominator. And then once you've gotten rid of the fractions, then you're going to look for parentheses. If there are neither one of those things, then since we use opposite operations, we're going to follow PEMDAS in reverse order after that. In other words, we'll do addition and subtraction first, and then dividing and multiplication. Okay. So let's look at number 1. The first thing that we're always going to do is still going to be to draw that line that splits the problem into two sides. Okay. From here, we look for fractions first. Since we don't have any fractions, we look for parentheses. We don't have any parentheses, now we're ready to follow PEMDAS in the opposite order. In other words, this says 4 times n plus 9. Remember, our entire goal is to get n by itself. So here's the variable. What's with the variable that needs to be moved? Well, there's a 4 and there's a 9, and they're both positive. And then what would be the opposite operations in reverse order? The other way to think about reverse order is to think of this like a party, and this is the door to the party. The -3 is me. I wouldn't have been invited to your party. Okay. Then you have this plus 9, who is kind of hanging out with you, but probably not your best friend. And then you have this 4, who is attached at your hip, which means that is your best friend. That's the person you're always with. So if you have to kick people out of the party one at a time, the first person that you're going to kick out is this plus 9. Okay. Again, reverse order. So we're doing the addition and subtraction. We're moving that first. So if I do minus 9, because again, this is addition, the opposite operation is subtraction, minus 9. That's my first step. So 9 minus 9 is 0. We double check. Then I bring down what's left. So I have 4n, and then I can do -3 minus 9. And if you don't believe me, I'll go ahead and pull up the calculator. And I get -12. So then from here, we have this 4n and this -12. Well, 4 is the one right next to you. We said if there's two numbers squished together like this, it represents multiplication. So the opposite operation of multiplication is division. So now we divide by 4. Notice I don't change the sign. The opposite of addition is subtraction. That's why we change the sign. The opposite of multiplication is division. So it's 4 divided by 4. That cancels out, leaving me with just n. And then -12 divided by 4 is -3. And again, if you don't believe me, -12 divided by 4, -3. Now, remember, you can always check your answer. If I wasn't sure, I can go back and plug this in for n. So if I now type that in my calculator, 4 parentheses -3, and then plus 9, I get -3, which is what I was supposed to get. So again, you can always check your answer. So -3 equals -3, check. All right, so let's look at number 2. I'm going to get it started for you, and then you're going to finish it. We would draw the line. We look for fractions, which we don't have any. We look for parentheses, which we don't have any. So now we start with opposite operations, or PEMDAS, in reverse order. So we need to remove any addition and subtraction first. Well, this right here is our subtraction, or again, if you're at the party, this is your best bud hanging out with you. This is the one that you would want to kick out first. So you're going to use addition, and you're going to move that over. Okay? And then see if you can solve that one. It's exactly like number 1. So let's move down to number 3. Number 3, we go ahead and draw our line, but the first thing that you should notice is that there's a fraction. So we have to get rid of fractions first, which means we need to multiply by the denominator. So if I multiply by whatever's in the denominator, so this right here is the 3, so I'm going to multiply this by 3, and then for some of you it's going to be easier to write it up here, multiply this by 3, and I'm going to multiply this by 3. So over here, this is 3 times, remember there's a 1 right here, 1/3. Hopefully that cancels. So 3 times, parentheses, 1/3. If we did it right, that should come out to be 1, which means that this and this cancel, leaving me with whatever's on top. So this is 1t. Then I have 3 times 11, which is 33. And then on the right side, I have 29 times 3, which is 87. Once we've gotten rid of the fractions, now this problem is exactly like the ones that we were working above. So I want you to try to solve it. Again, remember you're going to subtract 33 from both sides, and then you would divide by whatever's in front of the t. So you're going to divide by 1, and that should get you your answer. So let's look at number 4. Number 4 is the same way. Notice it's got this big division. Okay, so this is a big fraction. That means in order to start to solve this problem, we are going to go ahead and multiply by the denominator, which would be this -7. So I'm going to multiply by -7 on this side and -7 on this side. Now, notice this is one big term. Over here, I had 1, 2, 3 terms. Addition and subtraction separated that, so I had to multiply 3 by each term. But since this is one big fraction, this is all one term. Okay. So now if I were to multiply, remember the denominator of the fraction cancels out with this, leaving you with whatever's on top. So I have -7 times 6, which is -42. And then over here, the denominator canceled out with our multiplication, and so all I have left is that -12 plus h. So now I'm trying to get the variable by itself. That means what needs to move is this -12. The opposite operation of subtracting 12 is to add 12. So I should have h equals, and then if I do -42 plus 12, I get -30. Good. So that should make number 5 and number 6 seem a little bit easier. I'm going to leave number 5 for you to do. I'm going to come over here and do number 6. On number 6, you should notice that there is a fraction. That means just like we've been doing, we're going to multiply by the denominator. So this is times 3 times 3. Again, there's only one term over here. Okay, so I don't have to multiply each separate term, but that means this is going to, the denominator is going to cancel out with our multiplication, and it leaves me with whatever's left. So that means this is -4p. Then on the right side, or the left side, I would do 3 times 16, and I get 48. Let me move that over so y'all can see it. Now here's the variable. I'm still trying to get it by itself. That means this -4 needs to move. But these are squished together, so this is multiplication. So the opposite of multiplication is to divide by whatever number is there. So if I divide by -4, that cancels out, leaving me with just P. And then 48 divided by -4 is -12. So this is your answer. And again, don't forget, you can always check your answer. This is 16, and then it was -4/3 times whatever P is. So if I type that in, funky button, fraction, -4/3, and then I do times -12, notice I get 16, which is what I wanted to get. So I have 16 equals 16. So I know that's the right answer. In other words, there's no reason for you to miss a problem on these worksheets because you can actually check every answer. All right, so let's look at number 7. Number 7 doesn't have fractions, but it does have parentheses. And we should have learned in the last unit that when we see parentheses, then we're always going to have to distribute. So if I'm going to multiply that -4 times k and the -4 times 5, this is -4k, and then -4 times 5 is -20, and then that equals 60. From there, this is that normal problem. Here's the variable. The -20 is what needs to move, or the -20. So we would move that first, and then we need to divide by that best friend or whoever's hanging out with you here. Okay. All right. So then the same thing here. I'm going to go ahead and do number 8 just because decimals seem to scare you guys. But this problem is still exactly the same. There's no fractions. There's no parentheses. So we're going to do PEMDAS in reverse order and start kicking people out of the party. So here's you. That means this is your best friend. So we're going to kick this out first. This is -3.2, so I would do plus 3.2. So I would do 74.1 plus 3.2, and I get 77.3. And I now have -2.5d equals 77.3. Then if the numbers are squished together, this is multiplication. So the opposite would be to divide by whatever number is there. And what we do on one side, we always have to do on the other. So then these would divide out, leaving me with just d. And then I would put 77.3 divided by -2.5, and it comes out to be -30.92. So although it's not a pretty answer, it is an answer that works. And again, if we wanted to, we could try it by substituting it back in. So work to complete these notes. If you get stuck, make sure to ask. You guys really need to quit copying your neighbors because then you don't know how to do it.